So it turns out the one thing that was required to stop centuries, if not over a millennia, of religious conflict was Rainbow Month. After all of this time, all we needed to unite Muslims and Christians was Pride Month.
So the problem with the Crusades was there wasn't enough bumming to bring them together.
To put succinctly, yes.
I mean, the rainbow was originally a symbol of God's covenant, so the LGBT lobby have co-opted and corrupted a symbol of Christianity.
Yep.
So I think it is not unfair to dichotomize it as a religious war at this point.
Yeah. God's sake, I don't know where that came from.
It's the spirit of James Lindsay making you allergic to
No,
Christianity.
let's not get into that. So, before I get into the details of this, because there is more to this than just the unlikely partnership and uneasy alliance that's been going on in Canada over the weekend, I will draw your attention to the website where Stelios and Thomas did a debate on modernity, and I love this. That's such a classic Thomas.
It's like Nicolas Cage and John Travolta's Face Off poster.
It really is. And yeah, they were talking about modernity. It's always a pleasure to have Thomas back in the office. He's such a wonderful person with some great perspectives who will be coming back up as we go along with this particular episode of the podcast. But it'll be a very good listen. So if you've not got a subscription to the website yet, please consider just spending £5 a month. You can afford that. You can afford £5 a month, can't you? Can you afford £5 a month? Or you're going to go spend it on KFC, aren't you? Going to go spend it on KFC.
That's a projection right there, Harry.
Don't spend it on KFC. Spend it on us instead. Because we care about you. The Colonel does not care about you. And therefore, you can watch this video as a result, as well as everything else that we have in our gigantic library. So let's get on with it, shall we? So it's time to pledge your allegiance, everybody. Hands to heart.
I was about to make a joke about pledge allegiance to the flag, but I realised we're not allowed to say that on YouTube.
Are we not?
Not the joke I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So I saw Oron McIntyre, who's a good boy, posting about this. This is a real photograph. This is not photoshopped in any way. For Pride Month, the White House decided to display the Pride flag center stage in the middle. Oron asking the question, what does it mean when a non-national flag or not your national flag is put in the position of prominence for your country? What does that generally signify?
That would be colonialism, wouldn't it?
It would certainly signify some kind of conquering force coming in. But this was one that's been coming from the inside because the White House decided to do this themselves. And the next one, this comes from Pride Month at the White House, where you can see all sorts of images. We can see the banners, the flags in the background. If we just click on a few of these, John, just scroll through them so we can see various people. There's Joe and what's-her-face, his wife, in front of the flags, they're pledging their allegiance. In the next one, we can see a man holding a very confused and scared-looking baby that's repping the merchandise, and just typical American things. This is what America, or at least your American government, stands for.
At least this is an example of present black fatherhood.
Oh, for God's sakes. And in the next one, in the next link as well, everything has to be consumed by the rainbow. In the next link as well, they've put forward this new pledge. This is going to be the new Pledge of Allegiance. You've got to pledge to the Rainbow Coalition. The Biden-Harris administration stands with the LGBTQI plus community and has their backs in the face of these attacks.
Nice rhyme there, Dr. Seuss.
Attacks? I mean, the only attack that I remember is a member of this coalition attacking a Christian school a few months ago.
And murdering three children.
And murdering three children. Interesting how the news cycle just forgot that one after a day or two.
Yeah.
And then, for the immediate aftermath of that, everybody just turned around and went, oh, God, I hope the trans people are all right. Which was the Norm Macdonald joke. What would happen if a Muslim terrorist murdered 50 million Americans? I just would be so terrified about what would happen to the peaceful Muslims.
The interesting thing here, I'm really glad they put this up, though, is because Tenet 2 is addressing civil rights violations. And I'm glad that they have validated our opinion that civil rights laws are a parallel constitution imposed upon America's constitutional tradition and is the foundation for how the Democrat regime picks and plays favorites with protected groups. I agree. We just need to jettison it.
Well, if anybody can allege any form of discrimination, if you belong to a marginalized class, then you're able to get whatever you want just through civil rights law, because you can be absolutely assured there will be a line of civil rights lawyers waiting to take your case so that they can make their name off of the back of your grievance.
It's just Ben Crump and all like clones of Ben Crump, like
Yep,
it's a 90s
one
Spider-Man
after
story.
the other.
Yeah.
And speaking of the law being administered here, we have the FBI pledging their allegiance to the new flag as well at the headquarters for the FBI. They've got the pride flag up as well, because some people say, oh, and I can understand where this idea comes from, that a lot of the pride stuff, a lot of the rainbow stuff ends up getting signal boosted by the right wing, by the fact that we're always posting about these things. But the fact of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, that we're just reporting on what the American government is doing. They're the ones putting it front and center in everything that they do, placing the entirety of their administration, basing it entirely around these fringe coalition groups that they've built, basically so that they'll have a permanent revolutionary activist class and also a permanent voter base that they can rely on to get them into office every single year. So we're just reporting on it. I can understand the frustration that some people feel with it constantly being in their feeds, especially if they're on Twitter. But at the end of the day, this is stuff that affects people's lives, as we'll see as we go on. So people do need to be made aware of it, if only so that some people can form protest groups around it or just voice their displeasure.
It's not just us artificially amplifying it by reporting on it. It's literally a Fed operation. Like, the halls of power up until the point of the White House are now celebrating Pride more than they would Christmas or Easter.
Well, don't you mean the holiday season?
Oh, do one.
Yeah, exactly. And celebrities, as always, feel the need to get in on this. I saw this was getting a bit of traction last week as well. These images of Megan Fox with her 3 sons. Those are boys, in case you weren't aware, in case you might have been confused, judging by the way that she dressed them. This person, Robbie Starbuck, saying, you know, we used to live in the same gated community and our kids played at the park. I saw 2 of them have a full-on breakdown saying they were forced by their mum to wear girls' clothes and their nanny tried to console them. Pure child abuse. Pray for them. The screenshot that this person shared as well, the caption for it was so brave. So brave. Not particularly brave.
So Robbie was a former celebrity publicist, if I remember correctly, and he was also trying to run as a Tennessee Republican candidate, and the Republican Party of Tennessee blocked his candidacy. And this was part of the Uniparty. So Robbie's done some solid stuff as well. He's worked with Tim Pool before, and he's definitely on the side of the American patriots. And he was immersed in that California sphere, which is why he has a legitimate claim to say, I knew the nanny of Megan Fox's kids and how she wasn't present. And so this is a form of virtue signaling at the expense of the children when she doesn't actually spend time with her children as a good mother.
And it's the same you get with a lot of celebrities, where I think Angelina Jolie possibly has this with a few of her kids. I know for a fact that, what was her name from Mad Max Fury Road? Charlize Theron.
Yes.
I think 2 of her boys are trans.
Yep.
I know that, sadly, heartbreakingly, Naomi Watts from one of my favourite films, Mulholland Drive.
Only 2 scenes.
Maybe for you, but I have big brain film knowledge, so I understood it more than you did.
You can go and watch a premium video on Mulholland Drive on our website to watch Harry
Yes,
put
you
me through
can.
that struggle session.
But sadly, she also has the same thing where she has, like, I think non-binary or trans kids as well. So celebrities, as always, being that they don't have a brain of their own, I mean, they are literally hired so that they can read somebody else's words rather than their own, tend to jump on all of these trends at the expense of the well-being of their own children. I did see some people as well go, well, actually, it's only the one child. It's only the one child, but it's not. There's multiple pictures of this. It's very disturbing to see. The pride is even infiltrated, even got to Greta. Can you believe it?
Yes.
It even got to Greta, because Greta put forward the heartbreaking announcement that it's school strike week 251 today. I graduate from school, which means I'll no longer be able to school strike for the climate. And I'm sure she learned so much in those 251 weeks. This is the last school strike for me, so I guess I have something to write. And she goes on to give a big thread that I don't care about. What I actually cared about, John, stay up here. If you click on that image on the left, I know they were striking for the climate. There appears to be an alien flag there.
Well, I don't think it's alien, because if we remember, you're not meant to have kids because they produce too much carbon. And
this is true. This
so
is true.
If you wanted a representation of a doctrine of sterility, the trans flag would be apt.
Certainly would. But this infiltrates every single protest movement, every single social justice movement. They all have to be part of the big same intersectional pot, the slop that you throw it into. So it's no surprise, but good riddance to Greta's strikes, although I'm sure she won't. She'll stick around like a bad smell, won't she?
She won't give up on the strikes. It's just that...
She'll get other people's children to strike as well.
Bear in mind, I thought she was about 20. Why is she still in school?
Making up for all of those days she missed,
held back multiple years.
I bet that must have been what it is. And speaking of schools, this is what it gets into in the schools in America in particular. I saw this clip from Robbie Starbuck again, saying there were parents of kids at Edison's High School in Huntington Beach, California, said that this video was played to their kids in math class. And if we just play the clip, we can see that this was a Pride video in the middle of maths.
Wow, let's go. Wow. Why are you showing this to kids?
Hey, I'll warn you guys now, if you're going to be inappropriate, I will have supervision down and give all of you a Saturday school for next year. So knock it off.
Okay.
So I love this clip, and the reason is it's recreating the Breakfast Club dynamics of the 80s, which went a long way with stigmatizing conservatism and being square, but in the inverse, because now progressivism is repulsive and uncool and performative to a classroom full of students who probably don't watch this podcast, probably aren't as clued in on the origins of queer theory.
Care.
Exactly. So they're just checked out because it's the hegemony, it's uncool. And so in order to enforce that, she has to threaten them with Saturday detention, like they're members of the Breakfast Club, to get them to be silent. But it doesn't mean they agree with the ideology. They're just bullied into silence.
And the funny thing is as well, this apparently was in every class that this school was putting on as well. So it wasn't just maths class. But somehow, Pride has become so ubiquitous and so annoying, and to use an Americanism, so lame to these students that they are presumably more enthusiastic about an actual maths class than watching anything to do with Pride.
That's a great point.
I remember when I was in school, if it was coming to the end of the year or half term for Christmas, for instance, and it would get to that point where you've done all your learning, you've done all the maths, you've done the curriculum for that half term out of the way, I'll just put a Christmas film on. Kids used to cheer when they brought the video player out, and you'd be like, yes, I don't have to learn today, I just get to watch a video. But now they're putting videos on where they go, oh God, get the timetables out, please.
Yeah. So rather than sticking on the Grinch, they're loading up lesbians.com. It's educational, guys. We swear we're totally not grooming you.
I didn't realise Dan was administering this class. But that's
that was
where
a well-timed sip as well.
Yes, but that's where we get to the main part of this story, which was that Muslims and Christians united. No more brother wars. Here we go. So that they could trample radical trans flags in Ottawa, which Ottawa is in Canada. Canada, the home of the Leaf, which is where a lot of this is also being pushed, like in America, because Justin Trudeau is a sociopathic maniac who I'm sure this is just speculation and satire on my part. But if it did come out that he cut up women on the weekends,
well, I was going to say,
I wouldn't be that surprised.
He takes after his father, Fidel Castro.
Possibly. I also wouldn't be surprised if he ended up showing up in drag on the weekends, and maybe that's why.
Well, he's already done blackface.
So it wouldn't be too much of a radical step for him.
Just Deo in a big pink wig.
Yeah, so this came about as the result of the Ottawa Carleton District School Board's plan to force non-binary pronouns on all students. So everywhere, every school under the administration of this particular school board would have to be they, them. They, them pronouns for all of the children. The directive, which was issued to all staff, advised the use of they, them pronouns for all students until their preferred pronouns were expressed.
Right, so not that the students have to respect the they, them pronouns, but the default pronoun for a student is they, them unless they ask otherwise.
Yes.
So,
which is an absurd standard. Once again, the very idea of the preferred pronouns having to ask them when you introduce yourself to somebody is absurd on the face of it, because obviously we are biologically programmed to recognize somebody's sex within, I think, 5 seconds of seeing their face or their body shape. That's one of the things, because you know what? One of the things that's been important for the continuation of the human race has been, it's been mate acquisition. Very simple. You see somebody and you think, can I have strong babies with them? And if you recognize that they are the same sex as you, that's an immediate no. I mean, maybe some people might still go, well, I might as well give it a go.
Nature finds a way.
Yeah, but it's absurd on the face of it. But then to not only say that, oh, you need to ask for the preferred pronouns, but if you don't get the preferred pronouns, it's they, them, as though you are just some kind of grey amorphous blob, is ridiculous.
Again, it acquiesces to the idea that you can change your sex by thought. I mean, fundamentally, if you buy into the doctrine of preferred pronouns, it's not about politeness. You are ceding ground to trans ideology. And so anyone who in the UK self-describes themselves as a capital C conservative while also saying, I respect the use of pronouns, as I know some people have written articles on, and I've met people that do, no, you are just eroding the most fundamental distinction of human biology, which is the sex binary.
You are capital C cringe.
You're capital C cucked.
Yes. Many different things. And
sit in a hotel chair.
The email directive was sent out by the school district aimed at fostering inclusivity and belonging, more like aimed at confusing and frustrating children. According to the spokesperson Darcy Knoll, it was met with a considerable backlash. Anonymously speaking, one Ottawa mother formerly associated with the school board expressed her shock, remarking that the emails from the board sounded more like LGBTQ propaganda. And once again, these are just normal people. They're probably not watching this podcast on the daily, but they just read this and go, okay, this is getting a bit mental. They're probably aware of all the controversy around it, but this is probably the normies. These will be your normies who are like, well, you know, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be exclusive. I want to be friendly to people because those are the typical moral standards that we expect from people these days. But even they're like, oh, this is nuts.
Well, it's also impossible to avoid even if you don't watch podcasts like ours because Joe Biden has the flag on the White House. Like, you guys put it in front of everyone.
Center stage.
So, of course, people are going to go, oh, what's this pride stuff? Sorry, what am I reading about men in dog costumes? And you want to teach that to my kids? No, thank you.
They want to do what in public? It was not a stand against inclusivity, she clarified, because you've got to, once again, these are normies. So you've still got to say, you know, I don't not support all of this. I just don't want it in my schools in front of my children. So this is like the NIMBY position, but at the same time...
Not in my backside.
But it's better than nothing, I suppose. The directive, moreover, calls for LGBTQ identities to be incorporated into all classroom resources and curricula across all grade levels. So every single class, once again, going to get more things like that maths class in America and California where, you know, sorry, you wanted to learn what pie meant? Well, here's what cream pie looks like. There you go.
Harry!
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I mean, that's what it is. We've seen the interior of a lot of these books that they're putting into the schools that have been banned from Florida and places like that.
If Johnny has 9 dildos and Jimmy has 7 dildos...
There you go. That's the sort of thing that these schools are going on about.
They will make
That's what
questions
they're putting
like
in front
that.
of the children.
Well, the critical race theorists decided to make questions about police profiling, so of course there's going to be sexually explicit maths questions.
Well, of course. I mean, you know, we're critical of James Lindsay. And we may be doing something talking about how critical we are about him later on in this week. But when I've been listening to some of his stuff that he's been talking recently about the Paolo Freire method of school teaching, that is correct. It's the way that they phrase the questions which makes them political in the first place. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's 2 of politically charged thing plus 2 of other politically charged thing equals politically charged answer. Therefore, it gets that conversation going in the classrooms. That's how they structure these things.
It's an attempt at conscientizing, it's a Portuguese word, the student body reciprocally with the teachers. So the teacher is in dialogue with the student, they level all power out, and so the teacher has their social conditioning repealed by the innocence of children, and reciprocally, the teacher teaches the children Marxist propaganda, and so you create a symbiotic revolutionary class in classrooms.
Honestly, if you want to propagandize and indoctrinate children from a very young age, it's genius.
Yeah.
It is absolutely genius. And, you know, I'm not saying that if it was going to good ends that I would be entirely against it. If it was to promote proper morals and such, then I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it, even though I would still say that if you're teaching maths, just teach them the basic maths.
I would say the reciprocal power structure is the reason why we couldn't adopt it, because actually proper hierarchy is the way to morally instruct kids in the right way. But also public schools are terrible, and I prefer homeschooling as well.
These are all problems with it, but if you're a communist subversive, it's genius.
Oh yeah, it's a very effective tactic.
But anyway, so that's going to be part of every single class across all grade levels. The Ministry of Education had previously also offered Ontario parents the option to opt out of sex education classes. However, which is something that I had as a child as well.
Yep.
I went through it in year 6, I think it was. But if my parents had wanted, then I would have been able to sit out. Excuse me. But as part of this current directive, then you're not going to be able to escape it, and you're not going to be able to opt out because it's going to be part of literally every single class, whether it's related to biology and sex or not. The school district also saw, as a result of this, high rates of absenteeism on the first day of Pride Month, with absences reaching above 60% in 2 of their schools and over 40% in 9 others. So that's all over and almost half of all of the students gone for most of that. And then the protests that were going on Friday as well, and over the weekend as well, you can see things starting to ramp up here, and then in the next one is where it really starts to go down, where you've just got people stamping on the pride flags because you don't want it. And these protests, I imagine, from what I saw from other people posting, got a bit more violent because you had counter-protesters, you had elements of Antifa there as well. You had one pro-trans politician who was there locally contend that he had been punched in the face, but there are people contesting that and saying that he had knocked a camera against his own face to make it look as though somebody had attacked him. So there's a lot of grey area going on in this. But at the very least, it's interesting to see that it's brought people together. You know, surprisingly, wanting to protect your own children is something that people from all sorts of vastly different cultures can agree on. So who knows how long this is going to last? It's probably a very uneasy alliance.
Yeah, I would suggest this is something that's going to have divisions once this particular social malaise is cleared out of the way.
It certainly won't last forever.
But for the time being, the friend-enemy distinction is in play.
And also, it's very interesting to note as well that the intersectional coalition, which has been relied on for so long to create these political coalitions that have helped leftist parties maintain power, we know that it wasn't supposed to make sense from the first part because it's basically groups of outsiders and freaks put together so that they can have benefits given to them by the ruling parties. That has now started to, as we always expected it would, collapse in on itself. So we'll see how much further that goes as well.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on why liberalism is a universal asset. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.